Dr. Ellis, please.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks to the witnesses being here. You know, I once again find it interesting that many witnesses have come here to talk to about a single issue, at the expense of a $13 billion Canadian industry. Ms. Dukas, you talked about nicotine, of course, and I don't think you mentioned anything about natural health products, again, which is a $13 billion industry. I think we've heard from many other witnesses, and I think everybody around this table agrees that nicotine is dangerous. That being said, would it not make sense to create another framework to deal with nicotine products? I think some of the other witnesses explained that as well.
Thank you for that question. Thank you. Sure, it would be great if we had a framework, but we don't. And we just can't afford to wait for a framework. Nicotine is highly addictive, and that's what the ministerial order tried to tackle in a prompt way. So I think that the idea here is just to, should Bill 368 go ahead, to carve out nicotine products.
Thanks very much, and through you, Chair. So what you're telling me is that this federal Liberal government is suggesting that it's too difficult to deal with nicotine products, so we should destroy a $13 billion industry to do it, that they don't have any idea, no clue of how to create a new framework. Is that what you're suggesting? Have you had those discussions with them?
Dr. Ellis, we've suggested an amendment that's part of our brief on page 1, and I think that...
No, I get that. I asked you a very specific question, though. Have you talked about another nicotine framework with the federal Liberal government?
I think we've been dealing with it. Thank you for that question. We've been dealing with an industry that has outpaced regulation. It's happened all over the world, and governments are struggling to keep up with the new products that are being put on the market.
Thanks very much. I guess I'm going to struggle with your answer in the sense that is what the House of Commons does. It creates laws and regulations. And obviously, if we have a government that refuses or doesn't know how to do that, that creates a problem for Canadians. But what I'm saying to you is, great, an amendment, super. I just find it difficult that we have a government that doesn't have any other way to do this besides having folks like yourselves come here with a single agenda to talk about something that is a tiny part of a $13 billion industry. I think that's, for Canadians, and especially for Canadians who use natural health products, that's distressing, very distressing. But thank you for that anyway. Ms. Hoffman, I'll move on to you through you, Chair. You talk about 700 incidents of reports, or I can't remember your exact wording, of difficulties with natural health products. Can you tell me where you found that information?
Thank you very much for the question. ISMP Canada directly receives reports from consumers, individual practitioners, and healthcare organizations. Within that, it crosses all the continuum of possible products. We looked into our database, and we had a total of 700, 400 of those since 2019. Now, these are errors or issues. These are consumers saying, the label was confusing, I bought the wrong thing, and then I was out the money and I didn't get what I needed. Right up to, this is an incident report where an NHP was overused and contributed to, for sure, in the cases that we talked about, the death of someone.
Great,
and so
thanks for that.
we take those in and analyze them.
Can you tell us how many reports you had that there were rodent droppings and urine in the products?
I don't have that level of detail about each and every report. We have a summary for you today.
And could you table the entire report with this committee as well?
We could undertake to compile and provide a report.
Yeah, you made it seem like though you have these 700 different incidents of problems with natural health products, as you mentioned, from something as somebody read the label wrong or had a mistake to your egregious claim of death. But that being said, I would like to see all 700 of those reports. This is a very serious issue. We have a government who has said previously that hundreds of people have died by the hands of these products. They were never able to provide that information. That is why I'm telling you on behalf of Canadians to provide those details of these 700 reports, because that's very, very important information. Will you do that?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ellis. And I should say that we regularly update and issue bulletins and newsletters on
I'm
this
sorry, I'm going to
topic.
interrupt you because I didn't ask you about that. I want you to provide those reports. This is a very, very serious issue. Will your group, who's made these claims, provide those reports to this committee? Yes or no? It's a simple answer.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. We do have a commitment and requirement around privacy of personal information. So
I'm sorry,
specific
Ms.
copy-
Hoffman, I'm going to interrupt you once again. You've made a very serious claim against a $13 billion, often women-led industry on behalf of Canadians who we have received more information on this than, and more complaints about this egregious overreach than in any other situation. I'm asking you one more time, will you provide the 700 incidents, or is that not a true statement?
Thanks, Dr. Ellis. To be factual, we have received 700 reports. I'm going to have my colleague, our privacy officer, just speak to the legislative requirements that we live and work under.
I'm sorry,
And that
Chair, but I mean,
makes
this
it
is
very
ridiculous.
important
People
for
making
to trust
ridiculous
us.
claims and unable to provide evidence of them. This is unacceptable in front of a committee, Chair.
We're also out of time. Ms. Goodridge,
Oh,
please,
sorry.
for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank all our witnesses for being here. So, Ms. Hoffman, I just want to kind of follow up a little bit. So you used the number 700, and now when my colleague was asking questions in regards to being able to allow us to see this documentation, you kind of skirted around the issue saying, well, you couldn't give us an exact list. Well, the number 700 clearly comes from somewhere. And I understand privacy. Each and every one of us are bound by freedom of information in our offices and are used to dealing with sensitive information on a regular basis. And parliamentary privilege does give us some immunity and some space to actually ask witnesses to provide us with this information. And depending on the sensitivity of the information that is given to us, there are a variety of different checks and balances that go into determining how that information can therefore be used. But if you're coming in here giving a specific number, 700, and we ask you for that number, we expect you to be able to show your work. So are you telling us that you can't show your work?
Thank you for the opportunity. We can definitely show our work. I'd like our privacy officer to speak to what we can provide.
Thank you. It's a nuance here. Can we show our work? Yes. Can we table a report to this committee? With pleasure. Will it be, as was originally suggested, each and every report copy just handed over? No, it will. You
That's
said
not.
a list.
I just want to be. No. We at no point did we say hand over every single documentation from everything. Frankly, we've got a pretty busy course load and a pretty busy amount of stuff. But I want to see the list of 700 so we can determine, is this people reading a label wrong or is this people actually getting hurt? Because a number of 700 in a country that's as large as Canada, we need to see how severe are these, period.
Okay. So thank you for that. We heard something different. A list is possible in terms of de-identified information, which products involved, and how those, what information we might have on how
Thank you. So can you please provide
occurred.
that to the committee, ideally before Thursday, because we do have to go into clause by clause, and having that information will be helpful to make sure that we are dealing with the right information before we head into doing clause by clause and are doing amendments, which the deadline for amendments is by the end of this meeting, but this will be helpful, so the sooner the better.